14 hours ago, on a Saturday afternoon when most Americans were enjoying their weekend, Donald Trump posted something on Truth Social that could end up costing you thousands of dollars. Not in some distant future. In the next few months. He threatened to impose a 100% tariff on every single product coming from Canada. 100%. That means if a Canadian company sells something to an American business for $100, the American business now pays $200, double the price, overnight. And this isn't about some minor trade partner. Canada is the largest trading partner of the United States. $760 billion in goods and services cross the border between our two countries every year. $760 billion, that's $2.7 billion every single day. More trade than the United States does with China, more than with Mexico, more than with the European Union. And Trump just threatened to cut it in half with a single tweet. The reason? Canada announced a trade partnership with China. Not a full free trade agreement, a strategic partnership that lowers tariffs on canola and allows some Chinese electric vehicles into Canada. Trump said on January 16th that this was exactly what Canada should be doing. 8 days later, on January 24th, he threatened to destroy $760 billion in trade over the exact same deal. This isn't normal political posturing. This isn't negotiating tactics. This is economic self-destruction, and you're going to pay for it. Because when the largest bilateral trade relationship in human history gets threatened with 100% tariffs, prices don't just rise, they explode. I'm going to show you exactly what happens when this tariff gets imposed. Not if, when. Because Trump has threatened tariffs before and followed through. And I'm going to walk you through which products hit your wallet first, how fast prices rise, and why this isn't just about Canada. This is about the systematic destruction of every trade relationship America has built over 75 years. Before we talk about what happens when the tariff hits, you need to understand what actually comes from Canada, because this isn't maple syrup and hockey sticks. This is the stuff your life depends on. Let's start with energy. Crude oil. Canada is the largest foreign supplier of oil to the United States. 60% of all imported crude oil comes from Canada, 4.3 million barrels per day, every single day. At current prices, that's about $322 million worth of oil crossing the border daily, $117 billion per year. If Trump imposes a 100% tariff, that oil effectively costs double. The refineries in the Midwest and Gulf Coast that process Canadian crude have to pay twice as much, and they're not eating that cost. They pass it directly to you. Gasoline prices, diesel prices, heating oil, jet fuel, all of it goes up. Let me give you the math. The average American household uses about 656 gallons of gasoline per year. If gas prices rise by $1 per gallon because of the tariff, that's an extra $656 per year per household. But gas won't rise by $1. Industry analysts estimate a 100% tariff on Canadian oil would push prices up by $2 to $3 per gallon within weeks. $2 per gallon means your household pays an extra $1,300 per year just on gasoline. $3 per gallon means $1,968. That's before we talk about everything else that uses petroleum, plastics, chemicals, fertilizers. The price increases cascade through the entire economy, but oil is just the beginning. Let's talk about electricity. 85% of all electricity the United States imports comes from Canada, mostly to states like New York, Michigan, Minnesota, and Washington. These states don't just import a little bit of power. They depend on Canadian hydroelectricity to keep the lights on. If the tariff makes that electricity cost double, utilities pass the cost to ratepayers. Your electric bill goes up. In some states, it could go up 20 to 30%. The average American household spends about $122 per month on electricity. A 25% increase means an extra $30 per month, $360 per year. So far, between gasoline and electricity alone, we're at over $1,700 per year in additional costs for the average household. And we haven't even touched the big ones yet. Lumber. 30% of all lumber used in the United States comes from Canada. The housing industry depends on it. If lumber prices double because of tariffs, the cost of building a new home goes up by an estimated $25,000 to $35,000. Not maybe. That's the direct calculation from the National Association of Home Builders. If you're trying to buy a house in the next year, congratulations. You just got priced out by $30,000. If you already own a home, your property value might actually go up because new construction becomes unaffordable and supply tightens. But if you're a first-time buyer, you're destroyed. And it's not just new construction. Lumber is used for repairs, renovations, furniture. All of it gets more expensive. Steel and aluminum. Canada is the largest foreign supplier of both. The auto industry, the construction industry, the manufacturing sector, all depend on Canadian steel and aluminum. If those prices double, car prices go up. Appliances go up. Any product made with metal goes up. The average new car uses about 2,400 pounds of steel and aluminum. If those materials cost double because of tariffs, the price of a new car increases by an estimated $3,000 to $4,500. Used car prices follow because demand shifts to the used market when new cars become unaffordable. So if you're planning to buy a car in the next 2 years, add $4,000 to your budget. If you're financing, that's an extra $70 per month on a 5-year loan at 6% interest. Over the life of the loan, you pay an extra $4,200. Uranium. This one doesn't hit you directly at the grocery store, but it matters. 27% of the uranium that fuels American nuclear power plants comes from Canada. Nuclear power generates about 19% of American electricity. If uranium becomes more expensive because of tariffs, electricity prices rise further. We already calculated a hit from imported electricity. This adds to it. Agriculture. Canada exports massive amounts of agricultural products to the United States. Wheat, canola oil, pork, beef, vegetables. If those products get hit with 100% tariffs, food prices spike. Bread, cooking oil, meat, all of it goes up. The average American household spends about $7,800 per year on food. If food prices rise by 10% because of the tariff, that's an extra $780 per year. And 10% might be conservative. Some products could see 20 to 30% increases depending on supply chain dependencies. Let me add this up. Gasoline, $1,300 to $2,000 per year. Electricity, $360. Housing costs, if you're buying, $25,000 to $35,000 more. Car prices, $4,000 more. Food, $780 per year. For an average American household, the 100% Canada tariff could cost between $3,000 and $5,000 per year in higher prices. And that assumes the tariff only affects Canadian goods directly. It doesn't account for the broader economic disruption, the supply chain chaos, the retaliatory tariffs Canada will impose on American goods. When you factor in the full economic impact, some estimates put the cost at $6,000 to $8,000 per household per year. That's real money. That's a vacation you don't take. A car repair you can't afford. Retirement savings you don't contribute. And it happens because of a tweet, posted on a Saturday, over a trade deal Trump supported 8 days earlier. Now let me walk you through exactly how this unfolds, because it doesn't happen all at once. It happens in waves, and each wave hits a different part of your life. Week 1, Trump announces the tariff is going into effect. Let's say he gives 30 days notice, which is standard. The moment the announcement happens, futures markets react. Oil futures spike, lumber futures spike, metal futures spike. Traders aren't waiting for the tariff to actually hit. They're pricing in the expectation right now. Gas stations don't wait either. They see futures prices rising and they raise prices immediately. Within 48 hours of a tariff announcement, gas prices at the pump go up by 50 cents to $1 per gallon. This happened in 2018 when Trump threatened tariffs on Mexico. Prices spiked before the tariffs even took effect. Week 2, retailers and wholesalers start stockpiling. If you're a business that depends on Canadian goods, you're trying to import as much as possible before the tariff hits. This creates artificial demand spikes and shortages. Prices rise because supply gets tight. Lumberyards, steel distributors, auto parts suppliers, all of them are ordering extra inventory. This drives prices up even before the tariff is officially in place. Week 3, Canada announces retaliatory tariffs. They're not going to sit there and take a 100% tariff without responding. Canada will target American exports, and they'll target them strategically to cause maximum political pain. What does the United States export to Canada? A lot. $356 billion worth of goods and services per year. Automobiles and auto parts, machinery, electronics, plastics, agricultural products, aircraft, pharmaceuticals. Canada will put tariffs on products from politically important states. Florida oranges, Iowa corn, Wisconsin dairy, Michigan auto parts, Texas oil equipment, California wine. They'll target swing states and states represented by key senators. American farmers and manufacturers start losing access to their largest export market. Layoffs begin. Not immediately, but companies start planning. Hiring freezes happen first, then cutbacks, then actual layoffs 3 to 6 months later. Week 4, the tariff officially takes effect. Now the real pain starts. Every Canadian product crossing the border gets hit with a 100% tariff. Prices double overnight for anything that was still flowing. Gas stations raise prices again, this time by another $1 to $1.50 per gallon. Some stations in border states run out of gas entirely because Canadian fuel shipments stop while companies figure out new pricing. Grocery stores raise prices on Canadian beef, pork, wheat products, canola oil. Your grocery bill goes up by 10 to 15% in a single week. Month 2. Supply chains start breaking. Here's what people don't understand about modern trade. It's not just finished products crossing borders. It's components, parts, raw materials. things that cross the border multiple times during manufacturing. A car assembled in Detroit might have an engine block cast in Canada, machined in Michigan, assembled with Canadian parts, then shipped back to Canada for final assembly. Under normal trade, this works fine. Under a 100% tariff, every border crossing doubles the cost. If the supply chain becomes economically impossible, auto plants start shutting down. Not permanently. Temporary shutdowns, while companies restructure supply chains. But temporary shutdowns mean workers don't get paid. And workers who don't get paid stop spending money. The economic contraction begins. Month 3 to 6, the recession hits. Consumer spending drops because people are paying more for gas, food, electricity, and everything else. Businesses cut back because demand is falling and costs are rising. Unemployment starts climbing. The Federal Reserve faces an impossible choice: raise interest rates to fight inflation caused by the tariffs, which makes the recession worse, or keep rates low to support the economy, which lets inflation run wild. Either choice is bad, but historically, when faced with this dilemma, the Fed chooses to fight inflation. They raise rates. Mortgage rates go up, car loan rates go up, credit card rates go up. Borrowing becomes more expensive, right, when people need it most. Month 6 to 12, the full economic impact becomes clear. GDP growth slows or turns negative. Unemployment rises from 4.2% to potentially 6 or 7%. That's millions of jobs lost. Stock markets fall as corporate earnings collapse. Retirement accounts lose value. And all of this is happening because of a trade war with our closest ally. Not China, not Russia, Canada. The country that shares the longest undefended border in the world with the United States. The country that fought alongside America in every major war of the past century. Now let's talk about what Canada actually does when hit with a 100% tariff. Because they're not helpless. They have options. And every option makes the situation worse for American consumers. Option 1, Canada pivots to China completely. Right now, Canada has a limited partnership with China. Lower tariffs on agricultural products. Some access for Chinese electric vehicles. It's partial. It's cautious. But if the United States imposes a 100% tariff, Canada has nothing to lose by going all in with China. Full free trade agreement, complete market access, deep economic integration. China is already Canada's second largest trading partner at $58 billion per year. That could triple or quadruple within 5 years under a full FTA. Canada gets access to a market of 1.4 billion people. China gets a foothold in North America. Chinese goods flow into Canada tariff-free. Then they get re-exported to the United States through third countries or through creative labeling schemes. The tariff becomes impossible to enforce effectively. And every dollar of trade that shifts from the United States to China is a dollar of American economic influence that disappears. Jobs that would have been in Michigan or Ohio end up in Guangdong or Shanghai. Option 2, Canada joins BRICS or forms alternative trade blocs. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. These countries are actively building trade systems that bypass the US dollar. Canada joining BRICS would be a geopolitical earthquake. It won't happen overnight. But if the United States treats Canada like an enemy through economic warfare, Canada will seek security and alternative partnerships. And once that shift happens, it doesn't reverse. The damage is permanent. Option 3, Canada weaponizes its resource exports. Canada doesn't just export oil to the United States. They export uranium, electricity, rare earth minerals, fresh water. These aren't luxuries. These are strategic necessities. If Canada decides to restrict or embargo these exports in retaliation, the United States faces shortages that can't be easily replaced. You can't just find another supplier for 4.3 million barrels per day of heavy crude that Midwest refineries are specifically designed to process. Those refineries can't process light, sweet crude from Texas. They need the Canadian heavy crude. If it stops flowing, they shut down. Nuclear power plants can't just switch uranium suppliers overnight. Enrichment facilities, fuel fabrication, regulatory approvals. It takes years to develop alternative supply chains. If Canada plays hardball with strategic resources, the United States is in immediate crisis. And Canada knows this. Option 4. Canada allows Chinese military and intelligence presence. This is the nightmare scenario. If Canada fully pivots to China, at some point, China asks for military access, not bases, research facilities, intelligence sharing, port access for Chinese ships. Canada is part of Five Eyes, the intelligence alliance with the United States, UK, Australia, and New Zealand. If Canada's relationship with the US fractures completely, China offers alternatives. And once Chinese intelligence presence is established in Canada, American national security is compromised permanently. The Canadian border is undefended, 4,999 miles, the longest border in the world. If that border becomes a security threat instead of a security partnership, the United States has to militarize it. That costs hundreds of billions of dollars. It diverts military resources from other theaters. It creates permanent strategic vulnerability. All of this because of a 100% tariff imposed over a trade deal Trump supported 8 days earlier. Now let me zoom out and show you the pattern. Because this isn't just about Canada, this is the third time in 3 weeks Trump has threatened to blow up a major trade relationship over something trivial. January 7th, Trump threatens military force to acquire Greenland, threatens 10% tariffs on 8 European countries if they don't support negotiations. The European Union suspends a $1.7 trillion trade deal. January 21st, NATO holds an emergency session. The transatlantic alliance comes within hours of fracturing completely. A framework deal is reached, but the damage is done. European countries are actively planning for a future where American alliances can't be trusted. January 24th, Canada, $760 billion in trade threatened. Over a deal Trump supported a week earlier. 3 weeks. 3 trade relationships. Over $4 trillion in combined annual trade put at risk. This isn't strategy. This is chaos. And chaos has consequences. Global markets are watching. Every trade partner is asking the same question. If the United States will threaten Canada with 100% tariffs, what stops them from threatening us? Japan, South Korea, Australia, Taiwan, Singapore. Every American ally that depends on trade with the United States is now building contingency plans, diversifying supply chains, seeking alternative partners, reducing dependence on American markets. This is exactly what China wants. China can't beat American alliances through military force or economic power. But they don't need to. They just need to wait for America to destroy those alliances itself. And Trump is doing the work for them. Every tariff threat pushes allies toward China. Every broken promise, every sudden reversal, every weakened tweet that upends decades of partnership, it all benefits Beijing. China is offering an alternative. The Belt and Road Initiative, the BRICS currency system, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, alternative payment systems that bypass the dollar. China doesn't ask allies to choose between Washington and Beijing. They offer a hedge, diversification, options, and increasingly, allies are taking those options, not because they prefer China, because they can't trust America anymore. And let's bring this back to your personal finances, because that's what actually matters, not geopolitics, not trade theory, your wallet. If the 100% Canada tariff gets imposed, here's what you need to do immediately. First, fill your gas tank now, today, before prices spike. If you have vehicles that aren't full, fill them. If you have gas cans for lawnmowers or generators, fill those too. Gas prices rise first and fastest when tariffs get announced. Second, delay any major purchases that depend on Canadian materials. Don't buy a car in the next 6 months. Don't start a home construction or renovation project. Don't buy appliances. Prices are about to spike by 20 to 40% on anything made with Canadian steel, aluminum, or lumber. If you absolutely need to buy, do it in the next 2 weeks before the tariff takes effect. Lock in prices now. Third, refinance your mortgage if you have adjustable rate debt. The Federal Reserve will likely raise interest rates to fight inflation caused by tariffs. If you have an adjustable rate mortgage, a home equity line of credit, or variable rate loans, refinance to fixed rate now while rates are still relatively low. Fourth, shift retirement investments away from sectors exposed to trade disruption. Auto manufacturing, home building, retail. These sectors get crushed when trade wars hit. Move toward defensive sectors, utilities, consumer staples, healthcare. Things people need regardless of economic conditions. Fifth, build cash reserves. When recession hits, job losses accelerate. Having 6 to 12 months of expenses and liquid savings gives you a buffer. Don't keep it all in one bank. FDIC insurance covers $250,000 per depositor per bank. If you have more than that, spread it across multiple institutions. Sixth, avoid new debt. Do not finance a car right now. Do not open new credit cards. Do not take out personal loans. Interest rates are rising and economic uncertainty is increasing. Debt becomes very dangerous very quickly when income becomes unstable. Seventh, if you work in trade-exposed industries, update your resume and start networking. Auto manufacturing, logistics, import-export, anything dependent on cross-border trade. Your job is at risk, not immediately. But within 6 to 12 months, layoffs start. Don't wait until you get a pink slip. Start looking now while you still have income. Eighth, consider geographic diversification if you're in border states. This sounds extreme, but hear me out. If you live in Michigan, Ohio, or any state where the economy depends heavily on Canadian trade, your entire regional economy could contract. Property values fall, job markets weaken, tax revenues decline, state and local governments cut services. It's a downward spiral. If you have flexibility to relocate to less exposed regions, this is the time to consider it. Ninth, stock up on non-perishable goods that depend on Canadian imports. Canned goods, dry goods, anything with a long shelf life. Not hoarding. just buying 3 to 6 months worth instead of 1 month. Prices are